All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, I think that it's very important in life, especially as we get older and our generation starts to move on into further phases of our maturity, that we always remember and place in proper context what the generation or generations that come behind us have to go through, because the human experience pretty much does not change. And I think that oftentimes the great divide between the generations is based on a lack of scope from the previous generation and being willing or able to understand what the next generation is going through, because it's pretty much all the same. It's just that the surroundings might change. The overall decor or the backdrop might change, but the situation that we go through as human beings, they don't really change. Why am I saying all this? Because as we all know, Anthony Davis is one of the top flight players in the NBA. And it's pretty much becoming common knowledge that he wants to be moved out of New Orleans. He just wants to look like a good guy. And that happens a lot, especially when you're a younger player and you're concerned about how people feel about you and so on and so forth. Well, Charles Barkley has decided that he's going to chime in. And it's always so interesting when Charles decides to chime in, because Charles, proverbially speaking, was a very similar player to Anthony Davis in his day. When I say similar player, am I talking about in style of play or stature? No. I'm talking about where you would rank him. If we were to take a poll or list the NBA players on a hierarchy, Anthony Davis would probably finish as high as 2 and as low as maybe 5 or 6. In Charles Barkley's day, in the late 80s into the early 90s, he'd probably be about the same. He'd probably rank anywhere from as high as 2 to as low as 6, depending on somebody's preference. He also was in a similar situation near the end of his tenure with the Philadelphia 76ers, where he desperately wanted out. That's why it's always so interesting to me when he speaks about these other players and how they're able to move. And he always tries to encourage them to stay when he didn't stay. So anyway, he's decided that he's going to come out and say that he knows the fix is in regards to Mr. Anthony Davis being moved out of New Orleans, because Anthony Davis signed with Clutch Sports, which is pretty much what we've all known. So they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
After Wednesday's loss to the Bucks, Davis, who is aware of LeBron's comments about him, told ESPN Sacklow, "Obviously, it's cool to hear any high-caliber players say they want to play with me, but my job is to turn this team around. If we're 15 and 17, that means I'm not doing my job."
Well, that's partially true, Anthony Davis, but I think that your record is also a reflection of the fact that in today's NBA, there's only so much that a dominant center is going to be able to control the floor of the game. It's just totally different. If Anthony Davis played back in the late 80s, early 90s, he'd be a guy leading his team to, 50 plus wins every year, because everything worked through the center, through the big man back then. But right now, an Anthony Davis or Joel Embiid, they could be no greater than the second best player on your team if you want to win a championship. You have to pair him with a great wing. And when we evaluate the history of the NBA, other than Hakeem Olajuwon, what great centers were actually able to win championships without great wings? Kareem needed a great wing. He needed Oscar Robertson and Magic Johnson. Shaq needed great wings. He needed Anthony Hardaway just to get to the finals the first time. And, of course, he also played with Kobe and Dwayne Wade. So over and over and over again, we see that in order for dominant centers to win championships, they need great wings. And that was back in the era of the big man. So even more today.
Here's what Charles Barkley had to say this morning on Get Up about the possibility of AD joining LeBron in Los Angeles.
I think it'd be unfortunate for the NBA, but when I heard that Anthony Davis had signed with Clutch Sports, I knew the fix was in. That's the first thing that came to my mind when he signed with Rich Paul, who's a fantastic agent. When the first time I heard Anthony Davis signed with Clutch, I said, Anthony Davis is going to LA. So I feel like the fix has been in for like over a year now, and that's unfortunate for the NBA.
Well, I agree with you that the fix has been in for over a year now, but why would that be unfortunate for the NBA? I mean, at the end of the day, movement is part of the collective bargaining agreement. I think that it would only become unfortunate if it became the modus operandi of great players to start demanding trades just because, for a moment they were unhappy. But we knew that the fix was in regards to the NBA helping out LeBron James. I don't think that it's terrible for the NBA per se, because they're thinking about the big picture. They want to make sure that LeBron, who's out with the Lakers, has a real chance of winning a championship. And if they have to call a great player from a team that has no chance of winning a championship to assist him, that's what they're going to do. But movement is always good. What these NBA owners have to do is provide a counterbalance and stop giving in to players who demand trades. It's up to them. They still have the power to a degree. But freedom of movement is always going to be a good thing.
Guys, I want to get your thoughts on this, Max. I'll start with you. Yeah. We heard what Charles Barkley had to say. It's a foregone conclusion that AD's going to LA. He knew this when he signed with Clutch Sports.
Absolutely, he did.
And that it's unfortunate for the NBA. Do you agree with that sentiment?
No, it's not unfortunate for the NBA. Yes, I agree with Charles Barkley's analysis. But guys, everyone has to get this through their head. I don't care what kind of a league and what kind of parity you want. Everyone in the world would rather be in LA than Milwaukee. Nothing against Milwaukee, guy.
The same way that Charles Barkley would rather have been playing for the Lakers than the Philadelphia 76ers when he thought that he was going to be traded to the Lakers back in 1990.
Guys, if you're happy there, good. Whoever lives in Milwaukee, good. And thank you for watching the show and all that. But, LA, it's not LA's fault that the Pacific Ocean is there, that Hollywood is there, that the Lakers are the greatest franchise by far in the modern era of basketball. It's not close, they're doubling the next franchise. So that's just the way it's always going to be in the history of sports. No type A, real A-level free agent has ever signed in a place like Milwaukee in any of the major sports. And everyone seems to want to...
Well, Reggie White signed with the Green Bay Packers.
Want to go to LA. It's just the way it is.
It's not about LA. I think if you're hearing what Charles Barkley is saying, I'm assuming, because I haven't spoken to him about this, I'm assuming he's talking about the shift in the balance of power. In other words, the great talents in the game, leaping on top of one another to join forces.
Of course, that's what he's talking about. But once again, that's why Charles does not have much respect or regard for many of these younger players, because they know the history when it comes to him. Not only did he try to beg his way into a trade to the Lakers in 1990, he had his agent orchestrate a trade to the Phoenix Suns in 1992, a team that had won 53 games the year before. And then on top of that, after he and the Phoenix Suns, when their relationship became filled with acrimony, he leaves them and goes and signs with the Rockets in 96 and tries to team up with Hakeem Olajuwon. So it's very difficult to take Charles Barkley seriously when he speaks about player movement.
Thereby eradicating the rest of the league. That is what I think he's alluding to. And if that is the case, and it's something that repeatedly happens, I don't blame him for saying that. But because Golden State is Golden State, Boston, Toronto, or who they are, I wouldn't mind KD being in LA.
Yep.
Let me say this. There are more teams that have a chance to make the NBA Finals right now than in I don't know how many years. Like really, I could see 4 different teams making the NBA Finals out of the Eastern Conference. I could see Milwaukee making it. I could see Philadelphia making it, even though their chances are remote. I could see Boston making it. I could see the Toronto Raptors making it. I don't remember the last time that I thought that about the Eastern Conference. In the Western Conference, of course, the Golden State Warriors. I could remotely see the OKC Thunder making it. I could remotely see the LA Lakers making it. I could remotely see the Houston Rockets making it. So even though a lot of the chances of the Western Conference teams are far more remote, and also I could remotely see the Denver Nuggets making it as well. So the competition is good right now.
Yeah, but just real quick, I get that. I'm just saying, where do they want to join forces? It ain't
that's
in
not what
Milwaukee.
he's talking about.
It ain't in Charlotte. But I'm saying, but the reality is those locations, those centers of, it's the same thing that happens in the country. New York, D.C., L.A., Silicon Valley, they're called the brain drains.
Well, your argument went out the window just now because nobody wants to come to New York. Nobody wants to come to New York.
Well, that's how bad Dolan is.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. We'll see how things go for AD. Once again, I do think that movement is always going to be an important aspect of professional sports, as it is an important aspect of life, because what it will do is it will force the competition to step their game up. And Charles Barkley knows that as well as anybody else.